This week on the show, something strange is afoot.
They were the heroes from the future, teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities, and though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
Got a relatively short episode this week because we're looking at issue number 60, When Magic Shall Return. Or maybe it's When Magic Shall... It should be like, When Shall Magic Return? It is this issue, and no one cares. Or maybe it's like, When Magic Shall Return? I'm not sure about this. Apparently, a chaos erupts from the Sorcerer's world, and the end of everything nears.
That is true. And I believe it was Flash Season 7 that hinged upon the placement of a comma, and I said it was dumb then. And I hope that that's not the case here. But I can tell you that this issue really looks good.
Disagree.
We've been complaining.
Disagree. Go ahead.
You can. We've been complaining about the thickness. I've been complaining about the Mike inks for quite a while now, and we finally are at a point where Giffen is really, really trying to do his whole new style, and we have Al Gordon. Al started last month, but really this is the issue where it feels like Al and Giffen kind of get into a groove where it feels like there's consistency and you're not seeing characters changing from, the beginning of the issue to the end of the issue, which was one of the problems I had with Censor Girl's portrayal in the last couple of issues, because her head just kind of kept changing shape. But the first panel, actually the splash page of this issue, is Giffen and Al. You see Censor Girl sitting in the foreground being all like, oh man, I'm depressed. I'm the leader now. And Polar Boy and Timberwolf behind her looking like a couple of schmucks, because Polar Boy and Timberwolf are a couple of schmucks. But it's a really awesome panel for me because it encapsulates that first look at what we're going to see in a little bit with the 5-year gap Legion. So this is really aesthetically what's coming down the pike. And I really, really like just the whole look of this issue, with one exception.
Again, I'm going to disagree. I will agree with you that there's more consistency in the art, but unfortunately, and again, 5 year later reveal coming up, everybody looks like putty. Everything looks like it's been smashed together with clay, and there's no definitive form. It just kind of rolls right into the next thing and rolls right into the next thing. And it doesn't look, it looks like clay. And again, that may be a cool aesthetic for some people. I find it rather annoying about the third or fourth panel where I'm like, this looks like a Play-Doh. Looks like somebody's been rolling around in the clay. So that's my big argument against the art, is that it just, there's something about it. And I think it's because the line work is not fully connected. Like if you look at the faces, much of the time, especially when you get to the Red Hulk panels, but much of the time there's what should be a solid line oftentimes has broken up accent marks on it, which gives this illusion that this is not a well-defined shape. And especially when you get to Red Hulk, that's when it really becomes apparent. But even early on in those first couple of pages, whether you're looking at Censor Girl or Puck or Polar Boy, there's something about their faces doesn't hold up under the stress of being Legion leaders. And so, yeah, I'm just not a big fan of the art here either. I may never be a fan of Legion art ever again. That just may be the way it is. That may just
the
be
Moy
the way
brothers are less than 5 years away.
Oh, good. Then I will definitely enjoy the art when we get there. But then as far as everything else goes in this issue, it's just, hey, man, there's a giant dinosaur running around. There's a guy trying to pretend that he's Prometheus and trying to make everyone feel like he's being put upon. And then there is what are those screaming Mimi things from the Max? Remember the Max? Those things, the little creatures with the big giant smiles.
The ises.
Yeah,
I
the
hated them.
ises. Yeah, they are found throughout this issue as well.
Giffen, and we actually remember a couple of issues ago, maybe it was last issue, when Yara shapeshifted and her face was like all mouth.
Yeah.
Giffen really got into late 80s, early 90s, this kind of a fascination with disembodied mouths and jaws. There's actually a character who...
Was he doing the art in Dr. Fate at this time?
Yeah, he did it in Dr. Fate. He did it in Video Jack, which came out in 91, I think. Or maybe... Video Jack was a 6-issue series for Epic, but it had sort of that same sort of thing. And my dislike of body horror comes with a hatred of disembodied, fanged, maws just kind of flying around. And they are the villains of this particular piece. And there's a character coming down the pike whose name is Vrykos. And Vrykos has a completely empty face with a giant maw right in the middle of it. And I'm not sure what it is. I'm sure there's a psychological term for it. In fact, I'm 100% sure because I was reading the issues with Vrykos while I was taking college psychology 101 back in 1990 something. But I just I don't like these flying mouths. And you're right about those Red Hulk panels, but if you also look, Red Hulk's face is always entirely in shadow.
Yeah, because we can't let anyone know that this is secretly Mon-El or Colossal Boy or one of those two.
I think it's actually secretly wow, crap. Who was the villain of Amethyst, Princess of the Gem World?
I have no
Dark
idea.
Opal?
I didn't read that series. I just figured
Well,
that
remember,
we're building up to this reveal that people aren't real, that this was one of the trapped legions trying to break free. And who else but Mon-El, since the duplicate body of Mon-El is starting to fall apart, why not go and see what the real Mon-El is doing?
I believe, and I may be wrong on this, but I believe that the reveal that Xerox, the Sorcerer's World, used to be the Gem World, is about to hit us.
Oh, okay.
And we've talked about it enough that it's...
Didn't they do a whole summer of Gem World something?
Oh, I don't remember. I know they did a whole summer of Eclipso.
Yeah, that was great.
Diamond.
Yeah, because you had the Black Diamond right on the cover, and everybody was like, this is cool.
That comic destroys not only other comics, but bags, but storage boxes.
Yeah,
it actually tears up.
It's awesome.
It tears up the wood if you have, say, a comic shop that has wooden storage things. You do not want that Eclipso
well, yeah, because
issue. That Eclipso issue is terrible.
You can't destroy the Black Diamond. That's kind of the whole point.
Anyway, so I think that the guy fighting against his chains and being all Promethean and Liberty Blobberty is whatever the villain of Amethyst, Princess of the Gem World was. I don't remember his name. And honestly, well, we get there in an issue or two. But this issue also reveals that Doctor Strange never knew magic, which kind of entertains me.
Yeah, I kind of like that there's a big riff on... They go to the Magic Castle, which is a real place in California where they go and they do magic shows and those kinds of things, some dinner theater type stuff. It's all hush hush and you have to be invited and you have to dress up nice. But they're the head of the place, which we've seen him before.
Yes, all the way back to the Great Darkness Saga.
Yeah, is very much a Doctor Strange ripoff, save for the weird hands.
He has weird hands. They're just not as weird.
Yeah.
And Antonio Stefanacci accidentally lets a magic wand fall into the hands of, I'm going to say Dennis the Menace, which is, kind of fun.
Like Eddie Haskell is probably more right.
Eddie Haskell was in his teens, though. I mean, who was Beaver's friend? Lumpy's little brother. That's who it is.
Lumpy.
Yeah. But throughout this issue, we also see kind of a neat effect where the most powerful Legionnaires, your Lightning Lasses and your Sun Boys, start having their powers go nuts because their powers are quote unquote elemental. So all of the less powerful Legionnaires actually get moments. So Invisible Kid gets a moment. Phantom Girl gets a moment of, hi, I'm Phantom Girl, and I make fun of Timberwolf Teehee. The mockery of Timberwolf reaches its fever pitch in this issue as Polar Boy literally says, oh my God, not only is it terrible that Projectra is the leader, if she quits, then we have to work for Timberwolf.
Yeah. There's one interesting panel, and I don't know if it is because of the elemental nature of the villains in this, where Wildfire is like, I can't hold my form anymore, and thus I must return to being a blob. I find that really interesting because we just got a super ugly costume, and now it almost feels like they're backtracking on that super ugly costume one issue later.
The super ugly costume has been around for, I think, 2 or 3, but yeah. And I'm not sure because it's never really made explicit whether Wildfire's inability to hold his form is about magic and chaos and elements, or about, because he theorizes, I think, that Quizlet leaving means that he can no longer use the tricks that Quizlet taught him. But
yeah,
he's also in the downside of his.
Quizlet was holding him together.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. He's in the downside of his bipolar, so you can't really take anything he says really straightforward. But if the lack of Quizlet means that he no longer has his form, that means that he's falling prey to Quiznos. I'm waiting for the laugh.
Oh, there's just going to be like months of silence then.
That's just cruel.
Yeah, sorry, man.
Why you got to be so cruel? That's so cruel.
I remember the Quiznos subs commercials from the 90s and early 2000s. I think was traumatizing enough that we don't need to put that image in people's heads by trying to make a Quiznos joke.
Did you try their sandwiches? I mean, those are pretty horrible too.
Then of course that magic guy shows up. The real magic guy from Gym World finally shows up in bird form to Censor Girl, which shouldn't she know who this guy is? We saw that bird already as his familiar. And then she acts like, I have no idea who you are, even though I was a leading ruler on your planet.
Oh, they're not from Orlando.
Oh, they're not? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. I thought they were from Orlando as well.
No, Xerox. And that bird, yeah, I can't remember. I don't remember if the bird and the guy are
they were. I don't know if they're the same person, but they were
same guy. Or they?
If you go back into the previous issue, they are together on the same panel. Yeah, well,
right.
They're together in panel at the same time, so it's not like one is transforming into the other. I thought I implied it as that was the familiar, just like that little Kun kid was also a familiar to one of the other magicians.
That makes sense, yeah. And then his boss shows up to talk to the people who are with Antonio Stefanacci, and then the bird shows up to tell Censor Girl nevermore, caca.
Yeah, that it's okay that you killed that guy or that you killed Emerald Empress. Don't worry about that. It's fine. We're still going to elect you president of the organization.
Right. And all your laws of science are failing.
And then the stars fade out.
Right. Because what better way to show that you've gone from science fiction to weirdo magic than by erasing the stars?
I've always, and I think if people go back and listen to previous episodes, the magic users always are a weird fit for me, for Legion, because Legion is usually about science-based stuff, future-based science stuff. And so when you introduce this concept of magic, it just kind of throws a lot of that away.
And it's a very Silver Age, everything exists and everything is just kind of off and doing its own thing. And I actually love that. Didn't you love the Emerald Vi stuff in the reboot Legion?
I do, but that was because it shows that Violet, who is very much like her namesake, someone who is very timid and shy, is corrupted by the eye, which shows that the eye is actually the thing controlling people and not the other way around, and then just totally corrupting her into a badass. That's the part that I like, not the fact that you have to say the magic words and flick your hands a certain way, and then suddenly you've got the secret to gold there in your hands. That's not the stuff that sits with me.
And there has been a magician on the team since 81, I think. But there's also that question of how often do we see her muted, or do we see her at a point where she's like, oh no, I have prepared no spells today?
Yeah.
And they really have taken great pains to keep her within kind of a power level to where she feels like one of the weaker Legionnaires. But honestly, she and Censor Girl, who also has some magic in her abilities, and of course, Frosty the Snowman, who has some magic in that old silk hat, all kind of get nerfed a little bit. But as we start to transition into these new days, the end times of the Legion, if you will, you are also seeing a couple of, lesser characters maybe taking their place at the forefront. And I don't know if, de-emphasizing Monel and changing up block and doing the things that we're doing, moving Timberwolf and Censor Girl to kind of the forefront, is intentional on the writing team, because I know that the Legion election is always the fans' choice. So the fans wrote in and apparently voted Censor Girl and Timberwolf, which, if you were a fan in 1989 and you voted Censor Girl and Timberwolf, I just want you to seek help as quickly as you can. And if you don't get help here, get help somewhere. But more importantly, it feels like an attempt to try and alter the playing field, to try and change the Legion around. And I don't know how far in advance. I imagine by this point, they know that the relaunch is coming because it's 5 issues down the line.
Oh, yeah.
But I would like to know at what point they started really kind of knowing and prepping and being like, we're looking for an end game so we can do this.
Already. They already did that. They already did that when they were getting rid of the big villains. That's
taking out the Time Trapper, taking out the Infinite Man.
I think by the time that they wrapped up, and I know this is like 2 years prior, but I think by the time they wrapped up the universe reboot, and then they were like, oh, what do we do now because we can't use Superboy? I think at that point they really started to realize, oh, we should just figure out a way to reboot this entire thing. And so I think that they've been planning on that for at least 2 years, since 86 or whenever. This is like, this would be 2 years later. So I have a feeling they've probably been planning this for 2 years.
Could be, what was it? Was it 37 where Superboy dies? And this is 60.
Yeah, it's been 2 years. It's been 2 years worth of stuff. So, and then that gives them time. That gives them time to say, hey, we need to, get rid of the Emerald Eye. We need to get rid of Starfinger. We need to do all of these things and have it make sense to the reader while you're building up to something. But also we're causing the founders to leave. We're causing Brainiac to leave. We're causing Mon-El to exit. We're getting rid of a lot of the lesser substitute heroes. Chuck and Lornu are gone essentially by this point. Or at least most of Lornu is gone.
Dude,
I mean, no. 2/3 of her are already gone. So I think that when they're starting to do that, they're really signaling to the readers that not only is DC going grim and gritty, and so shall the Legion go grim and gritty, but also they are like, hey, we need to start turning off the lights in this big building, and it's going to take us a little while to get there. And because Legion is still relatively as popular as it is, I don't know who's in charge, if Paul has become in charge yet. I don't think he has. But they're giving them that leeway to just do whatever they're doing. That's the way I kind of view this whole thing in retrospect. That may not be the truth, and I'm sure that Levitz has talked about this somewhere in his writings or interviews, and I know that there's a really great resource one of our listeners pointed us to as we get to 5-Year Legion that may answer some of those things as well. But that's kind of how I see it.
Let's see, this is 89.
88.
So the edit.
Oh yeah, no, 88. Yeah. It went on. Well, depends on how you have this written. It says on sale March of 88, cover date May of 89. So
okay, so on sale March of 88. Yeah. Actually, probably March of 89. I may have mistyped that, but so it's probably still Jeanette Kahn, I think, at this point.
Probably. She was. I mean,
yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't know about editor in chief. Certainly president of DC for a long time. up until the 2000s, right? So she was president of DC until Levitz took over, and then they brought in the woman who brought Harry Potter to Warner Brothers, and then she took over.
Oh. I'm going to say, because Dick Giordano was the editor-in-chief.
Yeah, no, I'm talking about president. I'm talking about president. I'm talking about president.
Oh.
So that's why I was trying to figure out.
Diane
Nelson, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So that's kind of how I see things in this setup. As far as the elemental fight, it really feels kind of like last time where I was like, this is a breather episode or a breather installment. This one also feels a little bit like a breather kind of, there's really nothing too dangerous here, but something weird is going on. So pay attention to that, because the elemental creatures, while they are creepy, I do not think present any kind of real threat to the Legion beyond an annoyance, a Mixel-Plick level of annoyance, Mixel-Spitlick level of annoyance.
Mixel-Spitlick, but yeah,
skim.
I don't know if I would agree with that. I mean, it's going on across the universe, and everybody's like, "Oh no,
yeah," but I just don't feel
these are also people who are, technology based and technology focused in a way that, makes those kids today who won't look away from their phones look ridiculous. So the loss of technology really is one of the big reasons why we do get to the point that we get in the 5-year Legion, where everything has gone to hell and the Dominators are running EarthGov. Spoilers. But, you have the question of, when you are taking this science fiction, we're kind of right now seeing that transition from a Star Trekky sort of world into a Star Wars-y, dirty, broken down, everything's on fire, and this droid was made by your father 45 years ago kind of universe. And then I think it's going to go even further over into maybe even like a Logan's Run or something, where everything is gone, and it's like the Planet of the Apes. Dr. Zaius doesn't even know why he believes what he believes. It's just that somebody wrote it in ape law. And, by the way, by the time we get to about issue 40 of that next run, I'm probably going to be mentioning Dr. Zaius a lot. So write this down.
Yeah, that was that big Simpsons run right around that time. So that's the way it is.
Dr. Zaius. This is a pretty solid issue. And I feel like, just as a prelude to what's going to be the Magic Wars, it's very successful for me. I feel like it looks good. I feel like it works on a writing standpoint.
I think the writing is somewhat prophetic, because they're like, Earth is running out of logic. And it's like, yep, same as it ever was. Strange weather patterns, global warming, same as it ever was. Science is going to turn on you. Oh man, it's like they were looking at the tea leaves.
Do you remember saying to me that you're kind of an upbeat person and you look on the brighter side?
I know. I look how upbeat I am. I'm saying these people were ahead of their times because they were being prophetic about what was to come. That's cool.
That's just depressing.
Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, what did you think of issue number 60? You can head over to the Major Spoilers Discord, share your thoughts and reactions there. Next time, and I think here's the problem, Matthew, you're reading this issue wrong. It's not when magic shall return. You're not supposed to read it left to right. You're supposed to read it don't dead open inside. It's supposed to be when shall magic return, so that the next issue, or the issue 62, why magic must triumph. It's you're reading it don't dead open inside instead of top to bottom, then left to right. So
right.
What did you think, listeners? Get over into the Discord server. You can join for free. And we'll be back next time to cover 2 issues 61 and 62, where we find out more about magic and maybe a death in the family. Ooh, who's going to die next time? Come back and maybe we'll tell you.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2025 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.